guys, and welcome to Agape Love. This is going to be a just video where I continue where I left off in my last video. If you remember, I was going back to a word that the Lord actually gave me back in June, and that footage is also from either June or July. And just kind of explaining why we go through trial and why the Lord brings us through storms. And so I'm just gonna continue in this video with that last part. If you remember, there were 5 parts to that message, and this is kind of the 5th part. So let's just jump into it. So the 5th part I've titled The Great Reason, and the love of the Lord, right? And the Lord led me to Deuteronomy 7:8, and it says, "But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors that he brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the land of slavery, from the power of Pharaoh, king of Egypt." And this is just pointing to what I was talking about, in the previous sections of that message, because the Lord has made covenant with us, and when you go through storms, right, he's doing something in them, and so in our, in the covenant, right, within this, there's this relationship that we have with the Lord, like he is faithful to us, right? And he brought us out with a mighty hand, he brought us out of sin. You know what I mean? And so sin doesn't have power over us. He remains faithful to you, and I wrote, because he loves you, he tests you, and it's because, he loves you that you will always come out, right? Because of his love for you, and I had written some scriptures down of Psalms 57 because they really express kind of like the love and the joy, that we have toward our King, right? It says, "I cry out to the God most high, to God who vindicates me. He sends from heaven and saves me, rebuking those who hotly pursue me. God sends forth his love and his faithfulness." Those are verses 2 and 3. And then verse 7 says, "My heart, O God, is steadfast. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and make music." So it's like we belong to God, right? You belong to him, right? He has put his spirit in you. You belong to him. He has chosen you, right? And I remember hearing a Christian speaker say this right here, right? He has filled you with his purpose. He has filled you with his promise. He has graced you to do what he has called you to do, And then I was led to Job 33:25, and it says, "Let their flesh be renewed like a child's. Let them be restored as in the days of their youth," right? And in this verse, a commentary says, that, suffering, right, is the Lord's way of correcting and healing the lives of those he is already committed to saving. You know what I'm saying? So God uses storm, he uses trial to correct us, to heal us, And Psalms 94:18 says, "When I said my foot slippeth, thy mercy, O Lord, held me up." Right? We are blessed by the love of the Lord. He keeps us from wickedness. His goodness never ends. He is always good. He gives us exactly what we need to prosper, right? We're talking about prospering over sin. You know what I mean? We're talking about prospering above this world. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what he is doing while we go through trial, and the power of the Spirit within us is prospering us. We belong to God, and so we are kept from wickedness. We are kept with him. Anything that would threaten our relationship, he makes sure we don't fall away from him and into it, right? He makes sure that we are not, he's keeping us from sin. He's correcting us and he's healing us in that, right? He protects our relationship. He cleanses us in the storm because we are his bride, and this led me to this verse, and this is the verse that I feel like is the most important, right? Ephesians 5:27, and it says, "And to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless," right? And in a commentary, it says, "The Lord's goal as the church's husband is to present the church to himself in splendor. Christ desires the church to stand before him in brilliance and triumph. His desire is for believers to one day appear before him without any flaws or marks or imperfections." And it says, "Particularly on the wedding day, a bride seeks to look her absolute best for her husband, and Christ wants the church to look its best for him when that day comes," right? So we see that the purpose of Christ's relationship with the church is to bring on greater holiness. The reference to blemishes, right, is not about physical appearance, but about the church being pure before the Lord. To be holy is to be set apart. To be without blemish is to be without mark or problem. This is the same standard the Old Testament required of animals used in sacrificial offerings. They could not have any blemish. God desires that we come before him with a clean heart. And that refers to Psalms 24:4, right? So we see what the Lord is doing, right? Like, he has us to go through storm because he loves us, because he wants to purify us, because he wants to cleanse us, So it's such an expression of his love for us, right? It is such, like you really grasp, right? You really grasp the character of God, that even though you go through hard things, right? He is doing it for your good, you know what I mean? And you are prospering in the storm, and, I wrote, "The Lord does all of this for us." He does this for us. He cleanses our hearts. He purifies us for our sake, for the sake of our relationship with him, for the sake of his glory, right? What defiles us, he removes. He is committed to purifying us, right? Referring to the covenant again, you know what I mean? We're in covenant with him, He's committed to purifying us. He's committed to loving us. He is committed to us, right? And he is strong enough to do it. He is strong enough to carry this out, right? This purification, And I also wrote that, the Lord loves those whom belong to him, who have his spirit within them. He gave his spirit to us. The love of the Lord is in us, and it is cleansing us. The Spirit of God loves us, and so we are chastened. And in Hebrews 12:11, it says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it," right? And I just wrote this last part that really wraps it up, but it says, "I am redeemed," right? The process is final. It cannot be undone. The spirit in me is not going anywhere. It is only growing. I have power over sin because of the spirit within me, the spirit given out of the love of God. I overcome because of the power given to me by God. Out of his love, he has given this to us. Salvation is a gift. What's been given to me is mine, and the Lord continues to do the refining work in me. The Spirit is at work in me, cleansing me, a radiant bride. We are in covenant with Jesus, right? And he does the sanctifying work in us, So just from all of that that I just shared, this is what the Lord does through trial. This is why he brings us through trial, because he is purifying us, because he is cleansing us. And, at the moment that, I had received this word, and the Lord was just so powerfully bringing me through this word. And I haven't talked about this, but I do plan to make a video about it. But I have been in a season of prophetic numbers, and the Lord, the Lord has been showing me numbers for maybe over, 2 years now, showing me numbers. And through those numbers, he speaks to me, and I received this word actually through numbers. So he was bringing me through all of these scriptures, right? And I was just being so powerfully, led, by the Holy Spirit. And this song, like the Lord actually gave me a song after I finished this word, and it was a popular song that everybody knows, but it's by Celine Dion, right? And Because You Loved Me, that song, right? And if you actually look at those lyrics, if you actually look at those lyrics, you'll be so touched by them, because this is what the Lord, it's like this is the Lord speaking to us, and at one part of the song, she says, like, I was blessed because you loved me, and she says, what else does she say? You were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak, and that just really, just filled me up, right? Because that is what the Lord is doing. He is fighting our battles. He is bringing us through. He brings us through suffering. He brings us through rough times, right? And, and it's all for his glory. He's being glorified in times of trial and suffering, and he is bringing things to the surface. He's bringing weaknesses to the surface, and he's having us to, rely on him and depend on him to come into deeper intimacy and dependence, with him, and that's what we need. That's what we need. We need to be filled up by the Lord. We need to completely be dependent on him, So, yeah, I hope you've been blessed by that word. And I also just wanted to share just some of the things that I've gone through this year, because I haven't shared any of it. But since the beginning of the year, like I came into this year with a lot of financial problems. And, over this year, right, I have really been like in a battle to stay in my apartment, and, from the beginning of the year, they've been like basically trying to throw me out of my apartment. And it's been a lot, you know what I mean? There's been a lot of, there's been a lot of harassment, a lot of abuse, you know what I mean? A lot of racism as well, and I've been in and out of court, you know what I mean? And it's like the Lord has just held on to me, he has really held on to me through all of it, because there were just times, there's just been times through this season that I was like, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, what they're going to do next, what they're going to try to throw at me. But each and every time the Lord, showed up for me, you know what I'm saying? And he just continued to give me victory, right? And here we are at the end of the year, and I am still here, So it's just, I've really had to trust in the Lord, with this, and like I said, I've had a lot of financial problems that have made things very hard, and there was a month where it was really hard for me to like even eat, like food security was really bad. And it was bad. It was really bad, and I had never really been through like that before. I had never been through like dealing with, food security, right? Like food being scarce, you know what I mean? And it was really hard, right? Like to the point where sometimes I would just be crying because it's just like, I don't know what I'm gonna eat. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? But the Lord provided for me. The Lord held me through that. There were times where people, just nice people, were just offering to pay for my groceries. You know what I mean? Like there have just been all of these different ways that the Lord helped me to go through these, these difficult things, Another thing that had happened, when you're dealing with financial problems, you can't pay bills, and my lights were out for like a week. And that was extremely hard. I had never experienced that before. And I just didn't know what was going to happen next. And it was like, you know, one thing after the next, and I was just like, what is even happening? I didn't know when my lights were going to come back on. And the Lord was with me. Like, I can't say that enough, like the Lord has been with me through all of these things. And and my lights were back on after a week, and they've been on, so yeah, that was another thing. Also this year I have, had a lot of, kind of mental health struggles, and, a lot of, mental health struggles that really revolved around like constant thoughts, like just running thoughts that I couldn't stop. You know what I mean? Like I would try to be, I would try to sleep, I would try to lay down, and it's just like thoughts and thoughts and thoughts are coming. You know what I mean? A lot of intrusive thoughts, you know what I'm saying? A lot of that kind of thing, and and the enemy was also really coming against my sleep this year, like there was a point this year where it was just like, I was just like being spiritually attacked, in my sleep. I was having, nightmares, you know what I mean? All of these worries were just like running through my mind, you know what I'm saying? And it was just like, it was really difficult, but, like in that, right? Like, in that surrendering to the Lord, surrendering to the Lord back in October, I, you know, I really started dealing with like some mental health stuff, as well as a lot of, trauma coming back up. And, in October, it was just like these dark clouds, like these dark clouds just came out of nowhere. And I was just wrestling with a lot of rage, like I was wrestling with a lot of anger, and I was wrestling with a lot of, a lot of trauma, I was wrestling with a lot of trauma. And, I was just kind of feeling like this presence, I was feeling like this presence was there. This last portion of the year has been really difficult, things going on in the news, you know what I'm saying, and all these things, but I've been really having to confront trauma, since October, you know what I'm saying. After that ended, after the after those dark clouds, right, had lifted, I was really having to confront certain traumas, you know what I mean, and really go back and and really look at these things, and I haven't shared this, but I will, because it's part of my testimony and it's part of my story. But I was diagnosed with CPTSD a couple years ago, and I also have a history of depression and severe depression, you know what I'm saying. And the Lord has just taught me so much about trauma this year, and the Lord has led me into, you know what I mean, just places of surrender, and of trusting in Him, right, and of taking on His wisdom, you know what I mean. And I have really learned about forgiveness this year more than I ever have. Like I have embraced, you know what I mean, like what forgiveness is, what it looks like, what it does. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have really embraced that this year, and, just allowing the love of the Lord to come in, come into those spaces, come into, that, you know, come into those places, you know what I mean? Come into those wounds, you know what I'm saying? Come into those places. And, yeah, like the Lord has been doing that, so it's like with everything that I have struggled with, you know what I mean? The Lord has given me so much grace in that, and that's what our trials and sufferings are all about, like the Lord is showing us these things so that we will be led into deeper relationship with Him. You know what I mean? Because we need His grace. We need to depend on Him. We need His wisdom. We need His healing. And He's willing to give it. Like He has brought us into covenant with Him. He's willing to give all these things. He's ready to heal you. He's ready to purify you and to cleanse you. You know what I'm saying? He's ready to, give you power over sin and give you power over, things that you wouldn't have been able to deal with or go through before, but with Him, right? It's a completely different story, because this is just what the Lord does, so, yeah, I feel like I think I gave a pretty complete view of just, kind of the struggles that I have been through this year. And, and it's just, I feel right now that we are just bringing everything that we have, everything that the Lord has shown you this year, every weakness, that has come to the surface this year, just bringing that into the new year, right? Continuing to depend on the Lord, continuing to surrender, continuing to be, to be filled with His grace, you know what I'm saying? Continuing, whatever lessons you have learned this year, whatever you've been taught about yourself, and taught about, what you struggle with, right? Just continuing, right? So, yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.